Here are some strategies for identifying 1-4-1 versus 1-5-1. Part 1 covers major keys only. Part 2 will add minor keys. Let's start with a few basics. For these ear training videos, the chord progressions will be written in keyboard style, which means 3 voices in the treble clef and 1 voice in the bass clef. If we are in a major key, 1, 4, and 5 are all major chords. If we are working with 1-4-1 and 1-5-1 exclusively, this means that all of the chords are in root position. A note about inversions. By root position, I mean, if we have a C major triad, for example, we build a regular triad stacked in thirds like a snowman, which means C, E, and G. The C is the root of the chord, which is the bottom note that the chord is built on. E would be the third, which is the middle, and G would be the fifth, which is on top. The lowest note played from the chord determines what inversion you are in. So if the lowest note here is C, we are in root position. If the lowest note is E, we are in first inversion, and lowest note as G, we are in second inversion. Does the order of the notes on top of the bass note matter? No. As long as the notes of that chord are present, it can be in any order on top of the bass note. That means that if we are using a C major chord, as long as C is the bottom note, and all the notes on top are also C, E, G in whatever order, we are still in root position. If we are in C major, C, E, G is the tonic chord or 1 chord, so all of these are examples of root position 1 chords. The moment I change the lowest note, we now have a new inversion. So E in the bass means that we have a first inversion 1 chord. All right, back to chord progressions. An example of a question would be, so, how can we identify this? 1. Listen for the bass notes. If you can hear the bass, which is the lowest note played per chord, you'll already know that the chords are in root position. So all you have to remember is how scale degrees work and the interval connected to each progression. In C major, these are the options. If we are ascending from the tonic chord, 1 going to 4 means you're going up a perfect fourth. One going to 5 means that you're going up a perfect fifth. However, if we are descending from the tonic chord, 1 going to 4 means we're going down a fifth. And 1 going to 5 means we are going down a fourth. If we start in the middle of this 2-octave scale, and we know we're dealing with C, F, and G, if we ascend to get to the 4 chord, we go up a perfect fourth. If we descend, it's down a perfect fifth. If we ascend to go to the 5 chord, we go up a perfect fifth. However, if we descend, it's only a perfect fourth. 2. Listen for common tones. Once again, C major. 1, 4, 1, we have C, E, G for our tonic chord, and F, A, C for our subdominant chord. Our common tone is C. So in 1, 4, 1, our common tone is the tonic. If we take 1, 5, 1, C, E, G, and the 5 chord is G, B, D. In 1, 5, 1, our common tone this time is G, which is the dominant. So if you hear repetition of the tonic, which is the same as your 1 bass note, then you will likely have a 1, 4, 1 chord progression. If you hear repetition of the dominant note, then you likely have a 1, 5, 1 chord progression. All right, little quiz. You will hear the chord progression twice, and then you will hear the answer. Answer: 1, 4, 1. Answer: 1, 5, 1. Now let's add in minor keys. The same things apply regarding the bass line and common tones, but there is a new element, which is the quality of the chord. In major keys, 1, 4, 1 and 1, 5, 1 were all major chords. In minor keys, 1 and 4 are minor chords. In a minor key, the 5 chord used for exam purposes has a raised 7th, or leading tone, which makes it major. Therefore, if you hear 3 minor chords in a row, it has to be 1, 4, 1. If you hear minor, then major, then minor, then it has to be 1, 5, 1, since these are your only options. Let's try a few 1, 4, 1 versus 1, 5, 1 in minor keys. Answer: 1, 4, 1. Answer: 1, 4, 1. Answer: 1, 5, 1. All right, last little quiz. We're going to mix major and minor, 1, 4, 1 and 1, 5, 1. Answer: 1, 5, 1. Answer: 1, 4, 1. Answer 1, 4, 1. Answer 1, 5, 1. Here are some examples of 1-4-1 and 1-5-1 for C major and C minor, just in case you need it as a reference. Thanks for watching and happy practicing.